Welcome to the worship service of the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock in Manhasset, New York. I'm Suzanne Viverito, a member of the congregation and a worship associate. Ours is a congregation of people with different theological beliefs, but shared values. Foremost among them, respect for the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Within the framework of our shared values, we covenant to respect each other's beliefs and spiritual practices. Each Sunday, we take a little time to consider together a theme or topic that connects us to our values so that we can live into them more fully and with deeper spiritual insight. In today's service, we consider joy and happiness. Our special guest is Reverend Nic Filzen. Reverend Nic was formerly a UUCSR tenor soloist and is currently minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Augusta. Now, let's center ourselves as we enter into a time of worship. People with different beliefs who worship together as one faith.
Sitting on a rainbow, got the string around my finger. What a world, what a life, I'm in love. I've got a song that I sing, I can make the rain go anytime I move my finger. Lucky me, can't you see I'm in love?
Trembling with joy, the great sea has set me in motion, set me adrift, moving me like a weed in a river. The sky and strong wind have moved the spirit inside me until I am carried away, trembling with joy.
We light this chalice as a symbol of the interdependent work we do. Together we spark wholeness everywhere, so together our joy might be kindled too.
Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need. This do we affirm and covenant with each other. As Unitarian Universalists, the second principle we covenant to affirm calls us to promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. One of the most direct ways we live into this value each week is by taking up a collection to support local organizations and serve communities in need. Today's offering goes to Adventures in Learning, a Manhasset program which provides an environment that nurtures the minds, bodies, and souls of children from the formative years of early childhood through the impressionable years of pre-adolescence. Their activities focus on values of caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility. Adventures in Learning serves the children of low-wealth families, many of mixed or no immigration status, who have not been helped by any of the government's COVID relief packages. In response to the current crisis amplified by the pandemic, the program uses donations like yours to help families with grocery store gift cards, rent payments, and cards for transportation. Between 70 to 100 families are served through this fund. Thank you for your generosity, your compassion, your dedication to building a more just and joyful world for everyone. There are 3 ways to contribute. By using the donate link on our website, be sure to choose special collection, by sending a text, or by using PayPal.
My spirit sang all day, oh, my joy, nothing my tongue could say, only my joy. Oh, my joy, and spake, tell me my thought, I'm not my joy. My eyes can feel around, my joy, what beauty hast thou found? Show us thy joy. My tears grew mild. Oh, my joy, music from heaven is sent for my joy. She also came and heard, oh, my joy, what said she is this word? What is thy joy? And I replied, oh, sing, oh, my joy, 'tis thee, I cried, 'tis thee. Thou
It's no accident that I picked the Joy Thou Goddess lyrics from among the several gray hymnal versions of Beethoven's Ode to Joy as the opening hymn for today's worship. Yes, it has the obvious kind of connection to joy, the practice of which is our focus today, but there may have been another motive. My spouse Janaea's middle name is Joy, and she often uses it as a nickname. Not to mention she identifies as pagan, so the goddess symbol holds a lot of meaning for her and therefore me too. And yes, the name Joy is fitting. She's a little fiery ball of the stuff, for herself, for those who know her, for me. There's a lot I've learned and continue to learn from her when it comes to embodying a joyful life. By choosing that hymn, I wanted to pay at least a bit of the interest on my debt of gratitude for the joy she brings to my life. I assure you, I'm not going to take you on a Pollyannish, overly romantic joy journey today. Well, at least not entirely romantic. Our journey will be more like the joy I'm continually learning from Janaea, layered, rich, and nuanced, and not necessarily comfortable all the time. She's in touch with her full range of emotions, which certainly includes happiness and more so-called afflicting emotions like sadness and grief. She maintains several earth-centered spiritual practices which help her find and maintain her own joy, and most importantly, she discovers and cultivates joy through shared reciprocal and relational efforts with family, community, and nature. She isn't satisfied with finding her own joy and stopping there. Her joy is wrapped up in others' joy. In short, I've been incredibly fortunate to absorb at least a little bit of what it means to practice joy through the example of my spouse, Janaea Joy. I think it's important to define what I mean by joy. I'll start with what it isn't, though we UUs are sometimes accused of defining this way too much. Joy is not happiness. Sure, joy includes happiness, but happiness and joy aren't mutually inclusive. They're not synonymous. Happiness is an element of joy, but not all of it. Joy, for me, is a state of being that's inclusive of all feelings: grief, contentment, affection, fear, intrigue, vulnerability, ecstasy, frustration. A dynamic state of being that includes all the feelings on the feelings wheel, which I'm about to share on your screen. Now, these feelings don't always happen at the same time, and without a doubt, some feel better than others. And yet, if life is to be rich and joyful, it's important and healthy to be in touch with each of these emotions as they roll along. In short, joy is the complex feeling that emerges from the moving experience of wholeness. In the Pixar film Inside Out, 5 core emotions of a young adolescent girl are personified and characterize the girl's internal emotional journey, while many big life changes are happening in her external life too. The 2 principal emotion characters in the movie are joy and sadness. Now, I won't go through the whole plot of the movie for you, but to quickly sum it up, spoiler alert. Throughout the movie, Joy, the personified emotion, tries her best to minimize and mitigate sadness, to brush her aside. Joy thinks sadness is unnecessary and mostly just messes things up. Joy's just interested in a simplistic happiness. It isn't until she discovers her friend Sadness's true power to connect with other people that Joy becomes more nuanced herself. A new joy emerged in the little girl when Joy and Sadness began to depend on and play with each other. Religious naturalist Dr. Ursula Goodenough might say that new experience of joy is something else from nothing but. It's the more complicated and nuanced feeling that's perpetually emerging from all the full gamut of experience and emotion. And it takes practice. One of the most effective ways to cultivate joy, to practice joy, is a consistent spiritual practice. Now, as helpful as I believe the heavily westernized meditation and yoga practices that so many people have adopted can be, all of which certainly provide a variety of benefits, I think they've become something fairly distinct from their primary purpose and potent potential. Many people meditate to find their inner peace, to kind of wash away their more afflicting emotions. At one point, I held this quite privileged and one-dimensional view of meditation too. I didn't want to experience the more challenging emotions anymore. I didn't like being angry. I didn't like being sad. So I tried to meditate those feelings away. But the point of meditation is to be with what is, and that includes the harder stuff, the heavier emotions. Without fully experiencing them as they inevitably happen, you're likely to go down a painful path with no shot at joy. Again, this all takes practice. Meditation and other spiritual rituals aren't a magic elixir that you do once and then you're happy forever. They're not supposed to help you, quote, find your bliss in just 5 minutes, the secret to which one magazine cover I recently saw in a grocery store checkout lane claimed it knew. Spiritual wholeness and the accompanying joy require a consistent daily practice, which gets you more in touch with your full state of being. And because you're included in the interdependent web of existence, your full state of being is more than just what's going on in your own head, more than your own needs, more than just you on an island. My earlier meditation practice worked at first, but I started to become too self-centered. Your spiritual practice isn't truly full until you actively connect and reconnect with your body, community, and nature herself. Janaea's spiritual practices reconnect her to each. As she does most months, she recently did a new moon ritual. She was a little grumpy beforehand, and she was quite a bit less grumpy when she was done. Her ritual reminds her, like the cycles of the moon, grumpiness is just part of the wheel of life. To get beyond it, one must move through it. Before COVID-19 times and before we recently moved to Augusta, Janaea often performed similar rituals with a group of friends at an apothecary in Santa Barbara, where we just moved from. Ritual done with others, spiritual practice within community is truly holistic. She always returned home from these get-togethers beaming with energy, refreshed and reconnected to nature and her friends with whom she did the ritual. Joy is found in active reciprocal relationship with others, including non-human life and nature. Losing out on those shared rituals and anything else done in community for the past year or so because of COVID-19 is also something to grieve. Something I hope you're giving yourself space and grace to feel as you miss out on your important rituals. One must grieve when necessary to sustain joy. The one experience that falls outside of joy is suffering. Suffering is not grief, it's not pain. Suffering is the sustained obstruction of wholeness, usually by an inequitable system in which folks maintain their own power at the expense of others. Suffering is the absence of wholeness, and it's never necessary. For many folks in our world, COVID-19 is just one more thing through which to suffer. For example, early on in the vaccine rollout, folks from wealthy white neighborhoods in New York City monopolized all the available vaccine appointments in Washington Heights, a neighborhood where I used to live, but is where a primarily low-income Latino neighborhood exists. A neighborhood already far more impacted by the virus than other areas around the city because of pre-existing economic and racial conditions. The result amplifies historical suffering on a large scale. There's nothing whole or holy about that. I, of course, desire joy. I yearn for it even. Yet it's so important for me to never think of joy as the same thing as my own comfort, especially if I'm neglecting the needs of others or gaining comfort at the expense of somebody else. If my indulgence or desire gets in the way of others' wholeness, others' joy, then I'm not really adding to my own whole-y experience. It's much more important to think of my own joy as totally interdependent with everyone else's, interdependent with existence. This requires me to validate and do something to end suffering on this planet, to spark wholeness everywhere, so my joy might be kindled too. Now believe me, I'm not against pleasure. I'm no Puritan zealot. I find great joy in beauty, art, music, good food, dancing, and physical connection with my partner, with the aesthetics of life. In my previous life, as many of you know well, I was deeply ingrained in the arts world. There's nothing wrong with these things. I love them. I'm so blessed that they're a part of my lived experience. And they're all best enjoyed with others. Isn't there something extra joyful about being at a concert or a movie at the cinema or eating good food with other people that goes beyond simply enjoying those things on your own? They're all examples of the shared practice of joy. Isn't that why worship is so moving, more so than similar content on TV or standalone internet videos? Because you do it within community, together. And like happiness, enjoyment of art and beauty is only one ingredient in the salad bowl of a joyful life. It's the sweet raspberry vinaigrette that makes the salad so tasty. And if you were to eat dressing without the rest of the salad, if you forget the basic needs of yourself and others, aesthetics are worthless on their own, empty calories. I empower anybody and everybody to check me the minute I'm seduced by aesthetics, to the detriment of considering how important it is to be with and to work for the good of others and the planet. Beauty at its finest should sweeten the work of wholeness. E.B. White, author of great stories like Charlotte's Web and Stuart Little, and longtime editor of The New Yorker, once said, quote, "It's hard to know when to respond to the seductiveness of the world and when to respond to its challenge. If the world were merely seductive, that would be easy. If it were merely challenging, that'd be no problem. But I arise in the morning torn between the desire to improve the world and a desire to enjoy the world. This makes it hard to plan the day." The apparent disconnect between enjoying the beauty found throughout nature while being in solidarity with others who are suffering is really difficult. It often really rips me up. Does this division rock you like it does me? Do you feel helpless when you probably feel like you need more happiness and less stress in your own life? I get it. Life is hard for all of us. We need to rest and recuperate to keep going. Self-care is important. Finding this balance is really challenging. And yet, it's imperative that there is a balance between these apparent opposites to truly find joy in your life and offer it to others. Joy is not discovered and maintained through simple pleasure and happiness. The practice is so much richer and more complex than that. I'd like to share some words from a prayer by Richard S. Gilbert that wrestles with a seeming disconnect between enjoyment and the struggles of life, entitled "To Savor the World or Save It." He says, I rise in the morning torn between the desire to save the world or to savor it, to serve life or to enjoy it, to savor the sweet taste of my own joy or to share the bitter cup of my neighbor, to celebrate life with exuberant step or to struggle for the life of the heavy laden. What am I to do when the guilt at my bounty clouds the sky of my vision, when the glow which lights my every day illumines the hurting world around me? To savor the world or save it? God of justice, if such there be, take from me the burden of my question. Let me praise my plenitude without limit. Let me cast from my eyes all troubled folk. No, you will not let me be. You will not stop my ears to the cries of the hurt and the hungry. You will not close my eyes to the sight of the afflicted. What is that you say? To save, one must serve? To savor, one must save? The one will not stand without the other? Forgive me in my preoccupation with myself. In my concern for my own life, I had forgotten. Forgive me, God of justice. Forgive me and make me whole. As I close today's reflection, I'm going to recite that prayer one more time, but this time I'm really going to pray it. To practice joy by praying to the creative spirit here with us in this virtual space, praying to the work of joyful transformation that we embody. And this time, I'm going to change the words a little bit. Change every instance of the word or to and. It doesn't have to be either or, savoring or saving. Even in this sometimes ugly world, I genuinely believe we can have both. Yet that possibility only exists in relationship with one another, in beloved community with all creation, in love, when everyone and everything does the shared work of wholeness. As the late, great liberation theologian Dr. James Cone said, there is joy in this work because it increases your humanity. Please get comfortable, reconnect with your breath and your body, the ground. Close your eyes and bow your head if you'd like, and join me in the spirit of prayer. Blessed Spirit of life and love, ever-emerging universe, joy, thou goddess. I rise in the morning made whole through the work to save the world and to savor it, to serve life and to enjoy it, to savor the sweet taste of my own joy and to share the bitter cup of my neighbor, to celebrate life with exuberant step and to struggle for the life of the heavy laden. What am I to do when the guilt at my bounty clouds the sky of my vision, when the glow which lights my every day illumines the hurting world around me? Savor the world and save it. Goddess of justice, if such there be, thank you for the joy of this practice. Let me praise my plenitude without limit. Let me keep in my eyes all troubled folk. No, you will not let me be. Open my ears to the cries of the hurt and the hungry. Open my eyes to the sight of the afflicted. To save, one must serve. To savor, one must save. The one will not remain without the other. Thank you, Goddess of Justice, for this practice of joy. May we all practice it each day so together we may be whole. Blessed be, and Amen.
Even as we seem so far is our shield and a shelter, though the chill wind keeps on howling. One message tried and true, you're with me and I'm with you. Even as the world seems riven in two, struggle as we might to just make do, we can make the circle we're dreaming of if we dance in the light of love. Dance in the light, you're with me and I'm with you. Let's dance.
Please read with me as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. May we all practice joy each day. Happiness may not be all of it, yet may our whole bowl of joy be so full that we can't help but sing, dance, and celebrate together. Go forth in joy.
Life is a beautiful thing. As long as I hold the string, I'd be a silly so-and-so if I should ever let go. I've got the world on a string, sitting on a rainbow. Anytime I move my finger, lucky me, can't you see I'm in love? Life is a beautiful thing. As long as I hold the string, I'd be a silly so-and-so if I should ever let go. I've got the world on a string, I can make the rain go anytime